G'day guys, Fitcho here, and welcome to another Classic Cars video here on F1 2018, and today we are moving back into the selection of cars that we did have on last year's game F1 2017, and first up is the McLaren MP4 from 1988, one of the greatest cars Formula 1 has ever seen, winning 15 out of 16 Grand Prix in the 1988 season, of course, taking Ayrton Senna to his first of 3 World Championships, and Alain Prost to second place in the championship. Now, last year I drove this car at Monaco. You know, it's Ayrton Senna's McLaren from 1988, the year that he crashed out of the lead of Monaco. If he went on to win that race, which everyone expected him to, he would have won 7 Monaco Grand Prix in a row. In the end, he only won 6, won the year before, and 5 in a row right after this race, crashing out of the lead when I think he was about 30 seconds ahead of Alain Prost, pushing too hard, a mistake all by himself. But this year I want to drive this at a different track and talk to you guys about a race from the 1988 season that doesn't get talked about as much. You know, when people think of this season, they think of the dominance of McLaren and they think of Senna crashing out in Monaco. What they don't think of is the Italian Grand Prix, the one race where McLaren faltered. Now, this was round number 12 of the season. They won every race of the season so far, obviously. Senna had taken 7 of the races, I believe, and Prost about 4. And Prost knew if Senna won this race, he would have won half of the possible races that season. And he couldn't let Senna win any more races. He had to try to come back in that championship. At the moment Senna won 9 races, which was over half, the championship would have been pretty much Senna's, and he had to stop Senna from winning. Now, they locked out the front row of the grid. Senna on pole, Prost on second. But Prost had a misfiring engine. He noticed it right off the start of the race, and as Senna took the lead, Prost knew that his car was not going to make it to the end of the race. He knew that misfire was bad enough that he was not going to finish the race. So what he did, he turned his boost up as high as it would go, used as much fuel as he could, pushed as hard as he could to try to make Senna waste all of his fuel so Senna wouldn't actually make it to the end of the Grand Prix. And Prost eventually did retire with that misfire getting so bad, and at that point I think it was a 30-second lead Senna had over the 2 chasing Ferraris, but he had to go into ultra fuel conservation mode, and by 2 laps to go I believe the gap was down to 5 seconds. However, it wasn't the fuel that ended up taking Senna out of the Grand Prix. On the second last lap, he made a move on a lapped Williams, I believe it was, down into the first chicane. The Williams locked up and went wide, and it's not like the chicane is nowadays. It was gravel runoff areas, and the Williams had nowhere to go. Senna left him no space on the inside of the second part of the chicane, and the Williams was still there, obviously not wanting to go and get himself beached in the gravel right at the end of the race. Senna turned in, clipped the right rear suspension, broke it, and he spun out of the lead of the Grand Prix, and Ferrari went through to take a 1-2 finish at home, the only race that they won, and that was just after the death of Enzo Ferrari, and they managed to win at home. Their first victory of that season, and their only victory of that season. So that is where I'm going to be driving this car today at Monza. Now quickly, before we do head to the track, if you guys are new to the channel, make sure you do subscribe with notifications on so you know when every one of my F1 2018 videos do go live. Without further ado, let's drive this absolute beast of a car. Here we go at Monza in the McLaren MP4, an absolute beast of a Formula 1 car, and we are in 5th gear. I thought it would drop me into 6th there. I had the gate in 6th, but so be it. Through Parabolica we go, the back end getting away from us a little bit as that turbo does kick in, up into 6th gear as we get this lap underway, heading down the straight, 320 kilometers an hour now, getting up to 325. Where do we brake? Let's go on the conservative side on this first lap. We have a big lockup on the front right. We just about get the car stopped. A very clumsy line through there, then we almost lose it as the turbo starts to kick in a little bit. Now, into Curva Grande we go. If we go back another couple decades, into the 60s, this corner was an absolutely mental corner. Now down to the second chicane. Let's go fairly conservative on the brakes again for this first lap. Don't worry, I will learn this. Oh, there we go, that's a spin. That is a spin. I think that is the second time that has happened in these Classic Cars videos. The last one was when we were driving Gilles Villeneuve's Ferrari from the 1979 season at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Canada. So that is only 2 spins so far in this series, considering the way I do these races, or these videos, where I just jump into the car for the very first time on time trial and just see how they drive. That is not too bad, but through the Lesmos we go, and now down the back straight. Normally a DRS straight, but no DRS back in the 80s, under the old banking and down to the Ascari chicane, maybe 4th gear through here. Probably third. A lot of understeer through there. Yeah, that's going to be third. Oh, the curb, and that is a wall. That's 2 crashes in 1 lap. This has not been a good episode so far. This car is quite difficult to drive. I just recorded a video in the McLaren MP4 6, of course, 3 years later from 1991, and that car was seriously difficult to control, and this is quite similar. A lot of wheel spin in this car, especially with the turbo. I think this is the first turbo car that we do have on the game, because I don't believe the 82 car that we drove was a turbo. And we're definitely feeling the effects of that. But that's the end of my very first lap. I'm going to shut up, try to learn this track and this car, and I'll come back to you guys with a proper hot lap of this circuit with no mistakes and no commentary for you guys to enjoy. There we go, a lap of Monza in the McLaren MP4. Thank God that is over. This has probably been the most frustrating one of these videos I have recorded so far. I've had so many misshifts in this car. It is absolutely ridiculous compared to say all the other cars I've had. It's been an insane amount in this car. And then if you compare, say, to me driving on a Assetto Corsa or even iRacing, a proper sim, driving a H pattern on there, I almost never have a misshift. Like, I always seem to get it in the gear. That's not a problem I have. But on this game, in this car, at this circuit, I was having a misshift at almost every braking zone. The car just refused to go into gear. Sometimes when I was in 5th gear, coming out of parabolic, if I ran a bit wide and I clipped the gear, even before the lights had started coming up on the little MFD, you know, I'm getting towards like that, it sounded like I was on the rev limiter. Sometimes it would drop me into 5th, sometimes 6th when I did restart lap, sometimes like bouncing off the rev limiter in 5th, or sometimes it would shift up to 6th. It didn't really seem to make any sense there at all, and sometimes it get a bit of a staticky noise when I get to high speed, something I've never heard on this game. And this is my most fun car to drive on last year's game. In terms of the classic cars that I did drive, see, I've just had a misshift right there. And it took me 2 goes to get that back into gear. This has been by far the most frustrating car to drive so far on the classic cars on this game. The game's just not polished. It feels like a half-finished game, and I'm noticing that a lot in this car. Let's see if I can get that little glitch with... Oh, I've gone really wide. Let's get up into 5th gear. Something about bounce off that curb just there. You would have heard it on my hot lap if you actually go back, but it's just a little bit frustrating. And it's been a bit of a rambly end. Oh yeah, okay, there's no 7th gear, Lachlan. Yeah, let's ignore that. Anyway, it's been a really rambly end to this video. It's actually been quite a frustrating one to record, but next time out, we move to another Ayrton Senna McLaren, his last championship winning one, 1991. I did just drive that for another video, which you will have seen by now, and it's quite a lively car at the rear end, so that should be a fun one to do a video on, and I do in fact get it all the way down into 2nd gear. getting into first gear at the first chicane, getting into second gear here, getting into third at Parabolica. All those shifts have been ones that just haven't wanted to go. But anyway, I need to stop rambling. If you guys did enjoy this showcase of the McLaren MP4, make sure you do leave a like on the video. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure you do subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.